All right, welcome everyone that's joining us. I'm going to give it one more minute before we get started. Allow everyone to get logged in. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I think we still have a few more participants trickling in, but we definitely have a packed agenda to get through and want to make sure that we are able to show off the live demo of what we are all here for. So thank you all again for joining us today on this webinar talking about complying with San Diego's Energy Benchmarking Ordinance. We have a great lineup of speakers, both from the city, from Center for Sustainable Energy, and also from the San Diego Food Bank. So we're excited to have all of them here with us today to be able to kind of share some experiences of interactions that we've had with the food bank over the years and a lot of the great work that they've done in identifying energy efficiency measures, and then leading up to this phase now of showing how to really comply with San Diego's Energy Benchmarking Ordinance. And so we're lucky to have all of these individuals with us today to kind of discuss the background of the ordinance, what's happened at the food bank, and then utilizing the experience from CSE to help guide us through this actual live demo of submitting a project for the benchmarking ordinance. For those of you, I know we had quite a few new participants sign up. So the San Diego Green Building Council is a community of building industry professionals and sustainability advocates with expertise in areas of architecture, construction, design, planning, policy, and much more. But we really work together to promote sustainable building and community practices to bring San Diego region closer to achieving its climate, water, waste, and energy goals. We are a local community of the U.S. Green Building Council. Also, we are a partner to the International Living Future Institute and host a Living Future Collaborative here in San Diego. As a part of some of these national connections, we really try to bring it down locally, have those personal interactions, and really try to show what can be done through implementation. And so what's great about today is that I think we're kind of pulling all of these facets together to be able to talk about, AB 802, which is the statewide benchmarking disclosure law, how it's happening here within the city of San Diego, how maybe, a personal interaction where we've had our green assistance program with the San Diego Food Bank has led to identifying some energy efficiency measures. They've undertaken those. It's really helped their operations, and they'll be able to talk more about that. But then also implementing this now, using them as a case study to highlight how that benchmarking disclosure law is completed. So excited to have that here. If you're kind of new to the San Diego Green Building Council, I encourage you to get signed up as a member, volunteer, sponsor, donate, kind of whatever you can do. I think it all helps to grow your network, but it also is helping support green buildings in San Diego and helps us put on education like we're doing today. So thanks for joining us again. And then, so just to give a kind of quick overview of the speakers that we'll see and sort of the agenda and flow. My name is Josh Jean. I'm the Executive Director with the San Diego Green Building Council. I'll just be giving some brief kind of context and background as to what we've been doing with the food bank in the past and how this has led to today's actual webinar. We have Jim Floros, the President and CEO of Jacobs and Cushman San Diego Food Bank, as well as Casey Castillo, the Vice President of Administration and Finance and CFO at Jacobs and Cushman San Diego Food Bank, to talk about the overview as to sort of their operations and what they do and what has really driven them over the years to pursuing a lot of these energy efficiency projects, because they really see that value in the bottom line and being able to give back to the community. And then we'll hand it over to Tony Moore, who's Senior Management Analyst with the City of San Diego, to discuss the city's Building Energy Benchmark Ordinance, kind of how it came about and where it stands and what buildings need to be included. And then we'll turn it over to Rebecca Baptiste, Manager, Distributed Energy Resources with the Center for Sustainable Energy, to guide us through sort of the benchmarking process, what's in Portfolio Manager, very high level, because we don't have enough time to do a deep dive into setting up properties. We've already done that for you. So we've already baked the cake. We'll show you how it looks on at the back end. And the goal, excuse me, the goal there at the end will be to actually perform a live demo of submitting a real project, in this case being the San Diego Food Bank, for the city's benchmarking ordinance. So we're excited to have this sort of collaboration with all these different organizations to be able to bring you this webinar today. For a little extra context before I turn it over to the food bank, we've been working with them, I think back in 2010 or 2011, it really got started with our first green assistance program out there. So we're going on a decade, which is kind of crazy to believe. But, there was some things found throughout that process, and the food bank, and they'll discuss, had a lot of projects that they implemented. And so we came back in 2015 and started a feasibility study to see, like, is it really possible to do a LEED certification of this building? And actually, Rebecca, who's on the call, helped us out with that feasibility study. And so we went through that, determined it was, and then beginning in 2016 and finally in 2017, we were able to use a group of GAP volunteers of around 25 people that you see in some of these photos here to actually help certify the project LEED version 4 O&M Gold. So at the time, it was the first version 4 project here in the region. They had a lot of accolades that I know Casey will talk about, but as you can see here in the top left corner, a lot of the volunteers that were there at that plaque ceremony, helped give a ton of hours throughout that year to make this happen, working closely with all the folks at the food bank. We did a waste audit, as you can see at the bottom left, audits, checking out the mechanical system, the solar, interior cleaning, all that kind of stuff, and then even getting to kind of show off these great new gadgets that the food bank has, like this digester machine. So the idea here was that, they've really taken to heart a lot of these initiatives and put them in practice. And they've shown over time that they've been able to reduce energy usage and take those funds and put it back into their mission and really help the local organizations or local community. And so this kind of all additionally came about, Casey reached back out again and wanted to talk about this benchmarking ordinance. And we thought it was a great opportunity for us to share with our community as to what this looks like. And what are some of the good practices that can be done to maybe get you ready if you are benchmarking your building over time, some energy efficiency measures that you can put in place and how that can help your score. And then now tying it in with the city and doing this live demo, we can actually see what that looks like and how it gets disclosed and how it can now set up a property moving forward to continuously improve their operations and kind of keep track of it. So with that, I want to turn it over to Jim and Casey at the San Diego Food Bank to take us through sort of an overview and what their response has been and how they've been really had sustainability at their core. So let me give you the reins, Casey. You should be able to go for it.
Let's see.
We're good?
There we go.
All right. Good morning. I just want to thank Josh and the Green Building Council for a wonderful partnership with the San Diego Food Bank and our North County Food Bank chapter. And obviously, we've become way more environmental, but we found that we could save a lot of money by being more environmentally conscious, and that means we're feeding way more people. Can you go back a slide? I think we jumped up one.
this has got a really big delay.
All right, so we'll be good. So my task today is just to kind of give you a quick overview of what we are doing here at the San Diego Food Bank and how life has changed post-COVID. So prior to the COVID crisis, we estimated about 1 in 7 people in San Diego County, it's about 450,000 people, were termed food insecure. We were feeding about 350,000 people of those food insecure people every single month. And then the COVID crisis hit. We used March 12th as kind of our day when the county made the mandate for the shelter in place. And our numbers quickly spiked. We went from feeding about 350,000 people a month to nearly 600,000 people, which you really can't really make that kind of stuff up. We saw so many more people that have never faced food insecurity before. A lot of people in the service industry, restaurants, corporations furloughing, laying off. And we think that possibly the number of people now that are food insecure in San Diego County probably has gone from 450,000 to maybe double that, almost 900,000 people. If we break down kind of our response to the COVID crisis, I kind of have it basically in 3 phases. One of the great things about the San Diego Food Bank is because we're a completely local organization, so we are very adaptive. It's kind of in our DNA. We have our finger on the pulse of the community. We see a problem, we pivot, we create a strategy, and off we go. So March 12th, the mandate from the county. By Monday morning, we had already launched phase 1 of our response. So phase 1, we were hearing from our nonprofit partners that their distribution lines were almost doubling. One of the ways, or the main way that the San Diego Food Bank feeds so many people is that we do 200 direct distributions each month that are ours. Plus we have a network of over 500 nonprofit agencies that have feeding programs. So for those of you who are tuning in today, any nonprofit that has a feeding program, more likely than not, they're getting the majority of their food from us. So the first thing we did, we're hearing from the agencies that their lines have almost doubled. So we want to remove all obstacles from those nonprofit partners to make sure they can get as much food as possible. The idea is let's get as much food out to our nonprofit partners to kind of help mitigate that spike. So we literally distributed about 700,000 pounds of food just to our nonprofit partners in the first 2 weeks of the pandemic. Plus we're still doing our 200 distributions and all of that. So we did that. And then the second phase, we don't normally do mass distributions. You probably see them in the media, but we thought, well, this is a way for us to maybe shorten some of those lines. So we committed to doing 4 mass distributions. So we did one down at SDCCU Stadium, Del Mar Fairgrounds, Southwestern College, and one at Grossmont. They served a purpose. We fed about 16,000 people, but the problem with those mass distributions is they lack client dignity. And we learned you can really only do like 1,000 cars during one of these distributions. Well, 3,000 or 4,000 cars show up. And that becomes a problem because you have people who are waiting in line and then they don't go home with food. That lacks client dignity. That's not the way we do business. That's always been a priority for us as an organization. But you do garner a lot of attention. We did get a lot of media around those mass distributions. And it did give us a forum to alert the public. You don't have to come to one of these mass distributions. You can actually go to a neighborhood distribution in your community where you can get food and get it with complete client dignity. So we did the 4 mass distributions, and then we really decided to go back to our roots. What brought us to the dance, the tried and true method of feeding people where they live nearby with complete client dignity. So we launched phase 3, which is our super pantry program. And we're not aware of any other food bank in the United States that's ever done anything like this. And so what we did is we took 35 of those 500 nonprofit partners and we made them into super pantries. So what that means is they're high frequency, high capacity food distributions. The partners have to do at least 3 distributions a week. They have to take drive up and walk up patrons, and they have to do those distributions at least till December 31st. And the idea is just to push as much food as possible through these 35 sites that were all strategically laid out in the greatest areas of need. On top of providing these sites with as much food as they can handle, we also provided each site with a $20,000 capacity grant because we needed to build their capacity, because they needed pallet jacks, they needed refrigeration units, they needed storage units to be able to handle that huge spike in the number of people showing up at their distributions. So we made that commitment, and overall it was about $1 million commitment by the San Diego Food Bank to build our distribution model, to build capacity in our agencies. I love that for two reasons. One, short term, it helps with COVID, helps us get through COVID, but then post-COVID, now we've improved our infrastructure. We've improved our supply chain, so that's exciting to us. And like I said, it's about $1 million effort. And now we've done another round of grants for about another $350,000 to agencies that were not selected to be super pantries. This graphic, this map that you're looking at, it lists, first of all the gray spots are all our 500 nonprofit partners that are in San Diego County, and then the green with the S, those are the super pantry sites. You can see, the clusters. A lot of them are Central and South County, and then up in North County. But that big box where there's nothing there, that's we refer to that as the rural remote area. None of those agencies, partners applied to be super pantries. They didn't have the bandwidth to do that. So on top of the 35 super pantries, we tripled the size of our mobile pantry program. And the idea is that these mobile pantries are great because they can do spot distributions, they can do pop-up distributions and where there's gaps in service, and they can also serve that back country. This is all of July 1. So it's still kind of, everything's getting rolled out. What's interesting is a lot of other food banks from other communities have actually reached out to us and asked for our materials because, again, no one has ever done anything like this. Here's an example of one of our mobile pantry trucks. So again, it can handle the rural and remote. Prior to COVID, we used the mobile pantry primarily for rural remote college campuses, because we have a food pantry on every college campus in San Diego County, and military. While the military families don't have transportation, can't get the distribution, so we'll roll into like Navy housing and do distributions that way. So it's really a holistic approach, really about trying to provide people enough food to weather the storm and get through the pandemic. And then just some really quick stats for you. We'll just roll through these pretty quickly. Next slide, Case. So volunteers still a mainstay of our organization. We have a lot of corporate groups that volunteer, but obviously they all canceled. Volunteers are actually an integral part of our supply chain. Last year we had 34,000 volunteer visits in our warehouse alone. So just since the beginning of the COVID, we've had almost 14,000 visits, individuals who are coming into the warehouse to help volunteer. We're doing all the safety precautions, social spacing, masks, gloves, hand sanitation, hand washing stations, or what have you, to ensure those volunteers are safeguarded. We have a big senior program where these seniors get a 36-pound box of food. We have about 14,000 seniors to get one of those every month, but we found out that some of the seniors weren't coming to those 65 distribution sites to get their boxes, so we partner with a group called Team Rubicon, retired military, police, and fire. That's a national organization, and they go out and are sent out to different disasters. So we set up a call center. We made about 25,000 calls to the seniors who weren't picking up their boxes. They can send a proxy, so most of them were able to do that, but for the ones who couldn't send a proxy, couldn't get their box, Team Rubicon actually did home distributions. We did over 2,000 actual individuals impacted by those home distributions. Schools, obviously, some of you who have children are probably impacted by this. A lot of children who are food insecure rely on a federal program called the Free and Reduced Lunch Program. I think San Diego Unified has over 100,000 students that are on that program. Well, obviously, kids are not at school, so they're not getting those meals. So the school districts have been trying their best to try to do some daily feedings, take away meals, but we needed to augment or supplement that. So right now, we are doing weekly food distributions at 47 school sites, elementary school sites in 8 school districts. And just since the middle of March, just at those sites, we've distributed 1.4 million pounds of food, and probably that number is probably closer to 1.8 by now. Diapers, a lot of people don't realize we're the regional diaper bank. And typically we distribute about 500,000 diapers per month, but May was a record-breaking month, and we actually distributed 850,000 diapers in the month of May. For those of you who have kids, you know how expensive diapers are, and for people who are struggling to put food on the table, paying for diapers creates a lot of hardship. So again, we're doing a lot of diapers. And then purchase food. And now We were operating at about a 25% food deficit, pounds going out versus pounds coming in. We've closed that deficit to about 11%. One of the ways we've done that is by purchasing more food on the wholesale market. To give you kind of a comparison, in a typical year, 52 weeks, we usually spend about $1 million a year in food purchases. We've done $4 million in food purchases in the first, let's say, 10 to 12 weeks of the pandemic. So 52 weeks, 1 million, 10 weeks, 4 million. So obviously we're stepping up to the plate, and none of this is possible without a lot of great San Diego donors who've been contributing money to the food bank. And then since middle of March to the end of June, we've distributed about 16 million pounds of food. That's about 45% more than normal. And again, as I mentioned in the onset, we are now feeding about 600,000 people per month, which is crazy. And we also don't see this ending anytime soon. Even if we got a vaccine tomorrow and COVID went away, the COVID crisis has triggered a recession. So we know this is a marathon. We are bracing for 2 years of increased need. And you can rest assured that your San Diego Food Bank, your local food bank, will do everything in our power to meet that need. So now I will turn the floor to the smarter one of the people in the room, Casey, who will go through all our energy initiatives. But again, and any of you are interested in supporting the food bank, san diegofoodbank.org. If you know people who are in need, san diegofoodbank.org/get help. There are lots of ways people can help and be part of the solution. So thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you, Josh. Looking at that picture that you posted, we look a lot younger, at least I look a lot younger. I think I use that same picture in the next slide.
A lot.
A lot younger, yeah. So let's start from the beginning. The slide that I posted here is our energy reduction timeline, and I want to start from the beginning. And Josh kind of mentioned some of the beginnings to our process, but we started in 2009 with an independent energy audit. This helped us determine really which projects would be most impactful, and I would say financially impactful to our journey. And so that was a big help. So 2009, that was where we were. We used that audit to conduct our first project, which doesn't sound like a wow project, but it was a very important project to us, which was to replace our roof. We installed an energy efficient cool roof, and one of the reasons it's called a cool roof is because it cooled our warehouse down. You might not think that's important, but it cooled the warehouse down by 10 to 15 degrees. And with 20 HVAC units that now can work less hard, and with the mass refrigeration that we have, it also can work less hard. That was a very important thing to us and brought consumption down. Part of that project, we added an additional 35 skylights, which allowed us to turn our lights off in the warehouse during the day and use natural light. Again, doesn't sound like a big project, but very important to us. Just a few years after that, we installed refrigeration controls, which were controls on our freezer and cooler units, allowed us to have access in real time online to those units, and more importantly, allowed us to control the fans that were in those units. Fan run times are typically 100%. They run 100% of the time. And with those controls, we were able to reduce those run times by 40, 50, or 60%. So we were able to save quite a bit with that project. That was a project that we partnered with SDG and EON, and those are controls that we're still using to this very day. Our next project in 2014 was to replace HVAC units with very high efficient, energy efficient units. We used some new technology, had some case studies written up about that. Pretty neat project. And along with that project, we did a lighting replacement and retrofit project where we replaced hundreds and hundreds of fixtures, both inside and outside our warehouse. These were LED fixtures that had both occupancy and daylighting sensors. For most companies, lighting is where you get your most bang for your buck. Our goal at the time was to reduce our energy usage with that project by 20 to 30%, and we were able to do that. So after some of those initial projects where we were able to bring down our overall consumption or usage by over 30%, we felt that was then the right time for us in 2015 to install a solar array. So we installed a 350 kilowatt, 1,400 panel solar system at that time. We were spending about $150,000 a year in energy costs. That project reduced our annual cost to $30,000. One of the formulas that we use is that for every dollar we save, we're able to generate 5 mils. And so for us immediately, we were able to produce another 600,000 mils in the community. That project was in 2015, that was 5 years ago. We have probably generated an additional 3 million mils or more just because of those efforts. At the same time, we sub-metered all of our critical components and installed a Lucid building operating system, which were very effective and helpful for our monitoring efforts. In 2016, we weren't done. So again, we reduced our bill from 150,000 and probably to what would now be 160, 170 to 30,000, but we still had more left in the tank. And so we installed something called phase change material. Pretty neat project. Again, we partnered with San Diego Gas and Electric. Phase change material is a silicone bag that we installed in the ceiling of our freezer. And what that does, we leverage our solar with it because we overgenerate during the day. And that overgeneration allows us to charge the phase change material, to charge those bags or freeze them during the day so that we can turn the freezer unit off at 7 p.m. at night and then not turn on again for 12 hours until 7 a.m. Where that phase change material can sustain the temperature. Temperature does rise, but it stays within our healthy range. And again, now with that technology, we're able to reduce the freezer runtime by 50%, which is pretty incredible. There's one other project that we just completed a few months ago that I did not include on this list, and that's battery storage. We installed a small unit that will shave off some peak demand, $3,000 or $4,000 maybe a year in savings. We are still waiting on the case study. Probably we'll have that case study next couple of weeks, and we're always happy to share those case studies. Again, so we went through this process with really two main objectives. One was to improve our operational efficiency, and the second item was to reduce energy use so that we can reduce cost. And I think we've been very successful with both of those objectives. That has led to some recognition and some awards. Josh mentioned some of those. We're very proud of the federal EPA Energy Star Award. At the time, our score was in the mid 90s, maybe the high 90s, which meant we were 5%, top 5% of energy efficient buildings throughout the country. And Josh just told me we have a new score, and it's still pretty high. And then the other award that we're very proud of is LEED version 4. Josh mentioned that gold certification. That was with version 4 at the time, very strict criteria that we had to meet. And we were told at the time that we were the first building of our kind to receive that certification, not only in this country, but throughout the world. So I don't know, I'm sure that has changed, but we are very proud of that. Again, it's been a wonderful journey. We've been able to partner with some incredible organizations and entities like the U.S. Green Building Council, San Diego Green Building Council, CCSE, and now the City of San Diego. So appreciate your time, your support with this particular project, and that's our story.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim and Casey, for walking us through that. I'm going to take back over the controls. Cool. Yeah, just incredible to hear what you all have been able to do during this time. Abort that and go back. During this time to help continue to feed the community and even expand those operations, and at the same time really leveraging all of the energy efficiency work you've done, and even continuing to do more projects like the battery energy storage. So it's really great to see y'all continue to do that, to continue to reduce your operating costs so you can then turn that back into more meals for folks. So thank you both again for sharing that story. It was really great. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Tony Moore with the City of San Diego to walk us through their Energy Benchmarking Ordinance and give us a little background on that. Tony?
Great, thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. Good afternoon. I am Tony with the City of San Diego Sustainability Department. My main role in the benchmarking program with the city is to provide customer support and guidance with your benchmarking efforts, and also just kind of refer you to certain resources that we have locally and also via the internet. So a little background about the ordinance. As a local ordinance, it became a requirement last year in February 2019 through the efforts in the leading of the Sustainability Department and CSC. The City of San Diego developed like a benchmarking ordinance for commercial and multifamily properties that are over 50,000 square feet. And we try to align ourselves with the State Assembly Bill 802. Next slide, please. Okay, so we are here basically today to just give you more information about the ordinance. So we want to basically describe the importance of benchmarking and to provide you with information about accessing local resources and also the benefits of having a local ordinance. Next slide. So the City of San Diego, we place a great importance on being proactive, on reducing or eliminating long-term risks to people and properties with San Diego communities and the changing climate within the San Diego jurisdiction. So for example, the Climate Action Plan goals are consistent with the City of San Diego policies in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also measurable data in regards to building benchmarking for achieving our certain goals. So for strategy 1 goal, the Climate Action Plan relates to energy and water efficient buildings. One of the goals of strategy 1 is to reduce residential and commercial and municipal building energy use. So the first action of the Climate Action Plan calls for residential and commercial energy conservation and public disclosure. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I'm having problems with my mic. Okay, next slide, please.
Yeah. As I say, I can hear you that maybe just a little bit louder.
Okay, I'll try it again. Okay, hear me okay now?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, great. Okay, so here you find some examples of how benchmarking empowers building owners. So with savings, property owners in San Diego can save up to $200 million through 2030. As an example, a 500,000 square feet building could save up to 120,000. In regards to competitive advantage, energy efficient buildings will see a decrease in vacancies, but an increase in rental rates. For jobs, benchmarking can also have a positive impact on the economy. Benchmarking is expected to generate hundreds of full-time jobs and part-time jobs in San Diego. And at the same time, health issues, complaints by employees are 30% less compared to employees in conventional buildings. So through this effort, benchmarking is expected to reduce over 250,000 tons of carbon dioxide in San Diego by 2030. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here you see the benchmarking provisions, which some of you may be familiar with. The City of San Diego proposed these provisions to our stakeholders and energy partners. And in the beginning of our ordinance establishment, we just kind of reached out to the community in regards to organizations such as BOMA and IREM to get the word out about the ordinance. So the covered buildings under the city ordinance includes commercial, multifamily, and mixed-use buildings that are over 50,000 square feet. And this also includes exemptions. So as a requirement from the Assembly Bill 802, the city ordinance requires annual reporting and disclosure of energy data. Okay, next slide. And to touch more on exemptions, there may be some exceptions. However, if you feel your building should be exempt, you can submit your exemption request via our website, or you can simply just give us a call. I'm still having problems with my mic. I apologize about that. So if you are automatically exempt, we're suggesting that you still submit your exemption request. Since we are a new ordinance, we like to basically remove you from our distribution list that we currently have. So if you know that you are automatically exempt, you can just, again, go to our webpage and just say you are exempt from our ordinance. So for some of those buildings who are automatically exempt, if your floor is over half the gross amount of research or development or lab, You are automatically exempt. If you are an industry or manufacturing company or building, you are also automatically exempt, and also any government building. Next slide, please. Okay, and here you will see just like an infographic here that when we first started the ordinance process. It's something that Rebecca will go over later, but basically it's for the building owner who collects and report utility information for all their tenants using an Energy Star portfolio manager. So the data will be verified, and from there, there's various options for data verification. So for example, using the portfolio manager data quality checker, it is actually recommended that you use this tool. It's important that we have the correct data that we will be providing publicly. And usually it would take up to 2 to 4 hours to set up an account. Depends on how much information, how many buildings you are trying to submit the data for. Okay, next slide. And here's just basically information, the basic information that you're providing for the characteristics of the building. So even if you are applying for an exemption, we ask for this information, and this information is actually provided to the state. And also on the output information, this is the public disclosed information that you will eventually see on our dashboard once we have that up on our webpage. Okay. Next slide. And here's basically deadlines for our energy data submittal dates. We extended it to September 1st due to the COVID-19 epidemic. And we're also allowing flexibility for exemption requests. So even though we have March 1st, we are just being flexible with that during these times. Okay, next slide. And here you see a sample of New York City visualization benchmarking data using a GIS map. This is our goal with the city to have something similar towards the end of the summer, actually, hopefully before September. So here is basic compliance, displaying a parcel that you can compare to other buildings. You can search by address, you can search by building type, and basically this information can be researched also. So our goal with the city is to have it user-friendly and have something more similar to this, but easier to use and understand. Next slide. Okay, so why create a local ordinance? So here in San Diego, we align ourselves with the Assembly Bill 802. We feel it helps the city to manage its benchmarking program more effectively. So local support services that are targeted to the needs of local building owners can basically just be a phone call away. For example, while working with building owners who have already submitted their benchmarking data, the city can help inform them about specific city and local utility programs that will be able to assist them and identify purposes for more energy efficiency type buildings and opportunities. And also our CAP, our Climate Action Plan funding, states that the city will also have options for development of local-based commercial benchmarking resources. So basically a local ordinance can provide multiple benefits to building owners. Okay, next slide. Even though the state of California, they provide assistance and resources to you as building owners, but locally here in San Diego, you can benefit from additional resources that we can provide you. So this can be anywhere between getting assistance with a local benchmarking help center or in-person training, eventually, hopefully. And also if there's more funding, we probably can have a drop-in center. This is something that we're thinking about, but not actually something we're working on at this time. But for better information about building operation costs and when buying or leasing property, by marketing your building as energy efficient, you can market the property to achieve your rental goals or your rates for your rental goals, and also you can increase the property's value. And access to the actionable information related to energy efficiency retrofit decisions, with access to local building resources. Building owners can decide which infrastructure improvements they have are the most important for their building. And ultimately, you can just have a great opportunity to see your building just kind of stand out in the marketplace as being energy efficient. And next slide. And so we do have training resources on our website. We have step-by-step training videos. We have webinars that we recorded. We also have various reference guides in regards to submitting your energy data. And also we have a user guide with SDG&E who will also assist you with providing your data and portfolio managers. We have an upcoming workshop in September for benchmarking, and I recommend it highly. It's ran by Rebecca, and she's excellent at doing this type of workshops. Next slide. Okay, again, just visit our website. We have tons of information, resources. We can also can answer your questions if you'd like to email us or give us a call. And thank you for your time. And I apologize about the mic. I'm having problems with my with my headphones right now. But thank you, Josh. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. We appreciate that. And I did forget to mention, and Tony just reminded me, we do have a chat window or a Q&A. We will have some time at the end, about 10 minutes or so, to try to answer any questions. So be sure to throw those in there, or you can save those for the end, and we'll be sure to get to them. And if not, if we don't have time, feel free to just email us, and we'll be able to do that for you. So just wanted to then turn it over to Rebecca with CSC, and wanted to, sorry, I think somebody just asked for contact info. We'll share everyone's contact info so you can be sure to get in touch with them. But I will go back real quick. I think people might have wanted to see what was on here for the benchmarking from the city. Give you a second to jot that down, but we will, this is being recorded, and we will share this with all the folks. So you can go back and listen to it and reference it as well. But I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca so that she can take us through building energy benchmarking, what that looks like, and some of the general processes. As Tony mentioned, there's a lot of resources on the city's website. CSC and Rebecca, they've, in partnership with the city, have developed a lot of those resources and kind of training protocols to set up your property and all that sort of stuff. So we're not doing too deep of a dive there. This is really going to kind of be a fun activity to be able to show how to actually do a live demo. So she will touch base on some of those initial steps, but then take us through the live demo phase. So let me give control over to Rebecca here, and that way she can take us through this next part.
Great, thank you so much, Josh. As Josh mentioned, my name is Rebecca Baptiste. I'm a manager with Distributed Energy Resources at the Center for Sustainable Energy. And I think maybe it'll click. There we go. If you haven't heard of CSE before, we're actually headquartered in San Diego, and we're a nonprofit with one simple mission, and that's to decarbonize. And our vision is a future with sustainable, equitable, and resilient transportation, buildings, and communities. As I mentioned, we're headquartered in San Diego, but we actually have offices throughout the country and work on projects nationwide. I think we're actually at over 250 employees, probably more than 50 projects and programs at this point. And we do a lot of statewide incentive programs, region-specific solutions like our benchmarking coach program that I'll be talking about in a little more detail later on, as well as national partnerships with entities like the Department of Energy. And just again, areas of expertise: transportation, built environment, and technology convergence. So before we dive into how you submit your report, I want to make sure everyone understands what benchmarking is and just a little more context about benchmarking in general. So when we're talking about benchmarking in the context of buildings, what we're talking about is measuring your building's consumption, whether that's energy, water, or wasted materials, and inputting that data into some sort of tool. The industry-leading tool, and the one that we'll be demoing today, and the one that's required for regulatory compliance, is Energy Star Portfolio Manager, which is available for free from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Once your data is in the tool, it will then give you some great metrics that allows you to compare your performance for your building, both against its own historical performance and compared to similar buildings nationwide. So it will actually help you make an apples to apples comparison. So your office building is compared to a similar office building, your food bank, or in the case of portfolio manager, non-refrigerated warehouse is compared to other non-refrigerated warehouses, and so forth. So it really helps you make that apples to apples comparison. This is just a snapshot of the tool. As I mentioned, it can handle energy, water, and waste and materials. But for today's conversation and for the regulatory compliance, we're really talking about energy. So that's going to be the focus of today's conversation. When you're using Portfolio Manager, you may wonder, is it going to be able to benchmark my specific building? And it can. So there are over 80 different property types in Portfolio Manager, and it can handle a variety of different metering and building situations, whether that's a simple, you just have a single building with maybe an electric and gas meter. Maybe you have 2 buildings that are sharing energy between them, or you have a building that has multiple tenants and multiple meters. All of those different scenarios can be benchmarked using Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So before we dive into more of the nitty-gritty details, I did want to give a bigger context on the business case for benchmarking beyond the fact that it is regulatorily required. So the average commercial building actually wastes about 30% of its energy, but by simply measuring your building's consumption and becoming aware and making low or no cost adjustments, you can reduce your energy use an average of 2.4% per year. So benchmarking is really that first step. And as we show in this next slide, it's the first step in taking action on your building. Once you benchmark your property, you know where your property stands in comparison to similar properties and how much opportunity for improvement exists. You can then pursue more in-depth analysis using energy audits or other desktop auditing tools, and then plan across your building portfolios to take action on energy efficiency. Additionally, it's a best practice for managing building energy use and can help answer many different questions about how your property is performing. So you can actually track the impacts of retrofit projects on your energy use. Also understand how much energy you use on a per square foot basis, which is known as the energy use intensity. And also understand if your properties are more or less energy efficient than similar properties across the nation. And we'll get into a little more detail on how we make that apples to apples comparison in just a few slides. Additionally, a survey of over 100 facility managers found that 77% of respondents in New York City, where they do have a local law 84 requiring benchmarking, requiring building benchmarking, changed how they operated their facility as a result of that law. And then another 75% actually made a capital investment in new equipment to improve the efficiency of the building as a result of that policy. So these benchmarking policies not only help everyone better understand the potential for energy savings in buildings, but then also drive people to take action on those potential savings. And now just to talk a little more about the legislative context, I know Tony talked a lot about the City of San Diego's ordinance, but just to give it a nationwide perspective, there are actually benchmarking and transparency policies across the nation. So on this map from the Institute for Market Transformation, we'll see a few different colors. Green buildings mean that there's just public and commercial building benchmarking. Orange signifies public, commercial, and multifamily building benchmarking, and purple indicates that there are additionally performance targets or additional actions that have to be taken. So in California, you'll see that the state of California is colored in orange. That's because of the statewide Assembly Bill 802. And then you'll also see that 5 different jurisdictions, there's actually a few more now that are either in process or just adopted an ordinance, have their own benchmarking policies. So if you are located in Berkeley, San Francisco, San Jose, LA, or as we just discussed, San Diego, you will actually report to your local jurisdiction instead of the state. These program policies have been exempted from the state level, which means if you comply with the local policy, they will share the data on your behalf and in essence will be complying to the state for you. In San Diego, you'll see it's colored orange, just like the state of California. Both San Diego and California only require benchmarking. There are no additional actions required. However, if you do manage or work with properties in other jurisdictions, there may be additional requirements, whether that's doing an energy audit or actually pursuing some energy efficiency savings measures. But for San Diego and the state of California, there are no additional actions. And then there was a question regarding the deadline. The deadline is always June 1st. However, due to COVID, both the state and the city of San Diego have moved that enforcement deadline to September 1st. So you still have about a month left to benchmark your building, request your data, and get that submitted. As we mentioned, and I put in the chat box, the City of San Diego's website at sandiego.gov/benchmark has a lot of resources, including on-demand webinars, both for commercial buildings and multifamily, as well as step-by-step training videos that we've developed to help you through every step of the process. So just to talk a little more about the state ordinance, there is a statewide program. So if you are not within the city of San Diego, you still have to report to the state of California. Later on in the slides, we have links to all of these programs. So when the slides are sent out, Josh will make sure the PDF has those links. So you can just click the links from the slides that are distributed and go to the appropriate websites. So if you're in City of San Diego, anything benchmarking, you should go to sandiego.gov/benchmark. If you're within the state of California, you'll actually go to energy.ca.gov/benchmarking, which I'll type in the chat box right now, just in case you guys want to check that out today. One of the other, and I think more important aspects of Assembly Bill 802 is the data access provisions. So previously, before 802 was passed, you didn't really have readily accessible data about whole building energy usage if you were in a multi-tenant building, unless you got individual letters of authorization from each tenant. Now with 802, as long as you meet certain privacy thresholds, you can request whole building energy data that the utility will aggregate and give to you and upload into Portfolio Manager for you. So for commercial buildings, you need 3 or more utility accounts, one of which can be your own meters. And for multifamily, you need 5 or more accounts. One important thing to note is even if you aren't required to report under Assembly Bill 802, you can still request this data. Additionally, if you happen to own all of your meters, you can submit either an aggregated or what's called a non-aggregated request, which will give you meter by meter data. So either way, you can go visit SDG&E's website and get access to this information. If you do fall under the aggregation thresholds, you can pursue a letter of authorization to get the data for your tenants. And if you are unable to get the data from your tenants after attempting to do so, you can file for an exemption from reporting for that year with either the City of San Diego or the state. So we understand some people might be a building owner with a single tenant. So in those cases, you have to reach out to the tenant, try to get access to the data. If they will not provide it to you, then you can file for an exemption. And when you are filing for an exemption, you have to request approval, and then you will still report your building characteristic data using the Portfolio Manager tool. And I understand this is a lot of information, but we have lots of resources on the City of San Diego's website that anyone can access, even if you're benchmarking outside of the city, to understand the entire process. As well as Tony mentioned, we do have a webinar coming up in September. So before I move on to a little more details of Portfolio Manager, I just wanted to let you guys know about some resources we have available. So CSE, on behalf of the San Diego Regional Energy Partnership, does provide no-cost one-on-one technical support if you do need help benchmarking your property. We can help you every step of the way, from creating your account, adding your buildings, getting synced up with SDG&E, and generating reports. Today, we'll be demonstrating how you submit a compliance report, but we can definitely help you any step of the way. To learn more about our benchmarking coach program, you can visit greenbizsd.org/benchmarking or email us at benchmarking@greenbizsd.org. don't worry about who you should contact for what. We all work very closely together. So if you have a question, feel free to email us or the City of San Diego, and someone will get back to you with an answer for your question. But if you are requesting an exemption, definitely just email the agency you're reporting to, whether that's the City of San Diego or the state. Additionally, I've put a lot of details on here, links to the Portfolio Manager Data Collection Worksheet, which helps guide your data entry. And then the City of San Diego and statewide benchmarking program websites, the SDG&E portal where you can request aggregated data, the Benchmarking Coach program website where you can get that one-on-one technical support, and then of course the Energy Star website. If anyone here is representing multifamily properties, we have a lot of multifamily specific resources that you can check out for benchmarking and just energy efficiency in general. So definitely recommend you check that out. And then I think we had one question come in. If you are exempt with the City of San Diego, are you exempt from the reporting to the state as well? And yes, so if you are exempted by the City of San Diego, you will be exempt from the state, and that's because the city has aligned precisely with the state requirements. So you only have to worry about reporting to the City of San Diego or requesting an exemption from the City of San Diego. Oops, I think I just got out of there. Okay, great. So going on to discussing a little bit more about Portfolio Manager. I always like to tell people that when you get started benchmarking in Portfolio Manager, the first step is not even in Portfolio Manager, it's actually gathering some basic details about your property. So this includes your property's primary function, location, the year it was built, the gross floor area of the building, which is a very specific definition that you can find in Portfolio Manager or the ordinance, as well as certain use details. If you're going to manually add your bills, you would need those as well. But if you're syncing with SDG&E, what you'll need is your service addresses, account numbers, and meter numbers. If they are tenant meters, you'll at least need the service numbers and the meter numbers so that you can verify all meters are included in your request. The data collection worksheet, we're not going to demo today, but that is a really great tool to help generate a workable Word doc that you can then fill in to collect all the details that are needed for your specific property type. So here we see some use details. Those are for an office building. So if you're a museum or a distribution center or a hospital, you're going to have different use details that are required. So definitely check out that property data collection worksheet to help guide you gathering that information before you start benchmarking your property in Portfolio Manager. The one important thing about the use details is that they can affect your Energy Star score. So with that Portfolio Manager, you'll get different types of metrics. One is that energy use intensity, which is your energy used per square foot. But if your property is eligible, you'll also get an Energy Star score, which is a 0 to 100 rating of your energy performance compared to similar buildings. So Casey was mentioning the food bank has a score, I think 80 something now, previously 90 something. That's on a score of 0 to 100, where 50 is the median. So if we look at this example here, we can kind of understand what the different metrics are telling us and why those use details are so important. So on the left hand, you'll see a graph. This is just showing that for any value of an energy use intensity, there can be a range of Energy Star scores that can be expected. And the graphic on the right demonstrates this. So you'll see Building A and Building B have the exact same energy use intensity, which is the energy used per square foot. However, Building A has a lower score than Building B because its expected energy use based on the hours it's operating and the number of workers is lower than Building B. So because the difference between the expected energy use intensity and the actual energy use intensity for Building B is higher, that's why it got a higher score. So there's a lot of technical algorithms and mathematics that go into how everything is weighted. The EPA does provide technical guidance documents. We're not going to get into that today, but basically these different use details are really the key to making that apples to apples comparison for the properties that are eligible for a score. So now we'll head into portfolio managers so we can demo the submission of the property, and I'll also give you a quick tour of what it looks like. So Josh, if you want to.
I'll share that. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Good.
Perfect. Let me just see. Looks like. Yep. All right, we're good to go. Let me just make this a little bigger for everyone so we can. Oh, that's a little too big. I'll make it full screen for you guys. There we go. So this is Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And once you benchmark your property, this is what your property page is going to look like. So you'll see that we have the address and the year built already saved. And you can see on this main page that overall metrics from 2014 through December 2019. So you can see that over the last 5 years, the food bank has improved their Energy Star score by over 30% and has primarily dropped in their source energy use intensity. And that plays into the on-site renewable generation that the food bank installed. A little difference between source and site energy use intensity for those who don't know. Site energy use intensity is based exactly on your utility bills and the energy that is used on site. Source takes into account the energy it takes to get that energy to your building. So if you're pulling from the grid, standard site to source ratio is 1:3. However, if you're pulling from renewable generation or other on-site generation, that source energy use intensity is going to drop significantly. And you can see that here. Back in 2014, they had a site EUI of about 20, a source EUI of about 54, and now they have a much smaller difference between their site and source energy use intensity. And again, that's coming from the renewable generation. You can also see the dramatic drop in source energy use intensity on this summer graph that's over here. Up here, you can also see the current score. So that's through the last month of reported data, as well as the baseline score. On the details tab, we can actually see basic information about the property, including its gross floor area, as well as the building ID numbers associated with the property. So here, when you're reporting, the City of San Diego actually has a covered buildings list. I managed to get a stack of mouses. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I think it's still working. For everyone who's reporting to the City of San Diego, you will need to put in your San Diego building ID number. We're not going to go into all the details on today's meeting, but the city has resources on their website, full training videos that you can see exactly, where to go to find this information and how to get that number. If you haven't been assigned a number for your property, just email the City of San Diego and they'd be happy to assign one for you. In our case, we've already got that number assigned here, so we're good to go. Josh, I think you have to close it. I don't think it'll let me.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you. And then on the right side, we can see all the different use details for our property. So for the food bank, you have non-refrigerated warehouse and office, as well as parking use. You'll see refrigerated warehouse is 0. There were some changes in how Portfolio Manager handled warehouses and freezer spaces, so there was an adjustment made there. So historically, we had some property or floor area designated as that, but now it's all under this refrigerated warehouse tab. And if we click on that, you can actually see all of the different use details. Anything with a star is actually used to calculate your Energy Star score. So it's really important that you put actual values in versus generalized default values that are available in the tool, in the Portfolio Manager tool. And again, this will vary based on your use type. So you'll see here we have % use for cold storage, number of walk-in freezers, clear height, whereas for the office, we have some different types of uses that are required to be reported. So again, when you generate that property data collection worksheet, it'll help you determine exactly what uses should be included. And just a brief note about parking, you will want to choose a parking use type if there's any parking tied to the building energy meter. If your parking is separately metered and it's an open lot, you don't need to report it. But if it is separately metered in a parking garage, you do need to create a separate property for that garage. And that goes for both the city and the state of California. On the energy tab, we have all of the reported energy data, and you can see that the food bank has been benchmarking for over 5 years. So we'll see that we have solar generation, electric grid data, and natural gas information. One thing to note is if you have on-site solar generation, you do have to make sure, even if you sync with SDG&E, to add a solar generation meter. Again, all of this information is available on the resources on the City of San Diego's website. But in the case you have a net meter, there is specific guidance on that. So if you do get energy bills that are like 20 kilowatts an hour to 20 kilowatt hours, or maybe even negative in the case of overgeneration, there are a couple extra steps that you need to do. The extra steps are outlined in the Portfolio Manager Reference Guide on the City of San Diego's website. You can also reach out to the Benchmarking Coach program. We'd be happy to help walk through that with you. It just requires a couple additional calculations to make sure you're characterizing your solar generation and on-site grid use correctly. In this case, Josh has already done all the hard work of making those adjustments. So we look like we're ready to report. So when you are ready to report, you first go to the Summary tab, and you want to run this data quality checker. This is really important because it helps make sure that your data is high quality and ready to submit to either the city or state. So we're reporting for 2019, so we're going to choose December 31st, 2019, and we're going to click Run Checker. Now here we'll see some errors, but I'm going to walk through these with you guys. Certain errors you will have to fix. Other ones may not be applicable for what you're reporting. So if you see a stop sign and the stop sign is related to any energy meters, that must be fixed before you report. However, in our case, it looks like it's pulling not 12 months of meter data for some of the waste meters as well as some of the water meters. Because the City of San Diego and the state do not require reporting of water and waste, it's okay to go ahead and submit this report. And then over time, the food bank and SDGBC will go back and make sure that information is there. But since we're really focused on energy reporting, we're only looking for problems with the energy meters or the use details themselves. So going down, we have some other yellow alerts that are flagged. Yellow means there may be an issue or there may not be. So it just requires a second look at a check to make sure that the data you're reporting is correct. So here we see % used for cold storage appears unusual for the year selected. So this goes back to some of the changes I briefly touched on between metrics for refrigerated warehouse and non-refrigerated warehouse. So this is just saying, hey, usually a non-refrigerated warehouse has 0% for cold storage and you put 15. you just need to look at that and confirm it's correct. So in our case, this is correct. We know that there is about 15% of the floor area used for cold storage. So we don't need to do anything for this one. And then here, there's one that says office use may be incorrectly classified. So this error or alert is specifically related to the property use types that are chosen. So in general, in Portfolio Manager, you want to use as few uses as possible. So when you benchmark an office building, it's going to already automatically assume you probably have some sort of small cafe as part of the office building. When you want to break out a use type is when it has significantly different operating hours or use details. It's a significant portion of the floor area and it's used differently. So here it's saying, hey, a non-refrigerated warehouse already includes admin offices for that warehouse. Are you sure you want to have a separate office type? And in this case, we do. The EPA actually provided guidance that if the office is used for activities that are essentially not critical to the actual function of the warehouse, so the food bank's marketing activities, donor relation activities, things like that, those aren't tied to the direct function of the warehouse. Those could be done off-site. That's why we're separating out the office use, because it's not strictly the administration of the warehouse and the people staffing the warehouse. It's for the organization as a whole. So this is a very specific case for the food bank. In general, for most organizations benchmarking, if you're a multi-tenant office building, you're just going to choose an office, and that's the only property use you'll have, except maybe parking if you do have parking tied to your building meter. So again, really the data quality checker is a checkpoint to stop, look at your data, and make sure everything's correct. So even though we're seeing things here, we know we don't need to report water, we don't need to report waste, and our use details are correct. So we're actually okay to proceed with reporting to the City of San Diego. If you do have a question about results that you got and you're not quite sure, you can definitely always reach out. We'd be happy to help just to make sure your data is high quality and without errors when it's getting submitted to the City of San Diego. One thing you can do is if you do report and you do realize maybe a couple weeks later that something was incorrect, you can generate an updated response to send to the city with your new metrics. So just, definitely be cognizant of the data you're providing and make sure that if there is an update needed, that you just alert City of San Diego staff that you generated an updated response. So now that we ran this and we're good to go, we're actually going to go to the state's or the City of San Diego's website to get the reporting link. So Josh, can you open up a new tab?
Yep, just a second.
And I don't think yeah, I'll just do it that way. Great.
Okay, can you see from there?
Yeah, I can type a URL there, so maybe. Let's see. It's not letting me select it, so can you go to sandiego.gov/benchmark?
Let me do this.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Great, I'm able to control again. So this is the City of San Diego's website. And before we go to the reporting link, I did want to point out a couple things. On the right-hand side, you can sign up to receive benchmarking notifications. So we definitely encourage all of you to go ahead and sign up for the benchmarking notifications. We also have a benchmarking support form that you guys can use to submit a support request. You can also just email the city directly. Then under what's covered, this is where you would go to access the map to find out your building ID number. So there's a link to the benchmarking map and also some details on the exemptions if you do have any questions. There's also an Excel version of the San Diego covered buildings list if you are having issues accessing the map. And then under submit data, this is where not only do we find the reporting link, which you can click step number 3 to get that. But before we do, just want to point out some of the resources. So these are 10 to 15 minute training videos under the submit data tab that take you every step of the way through the reporting process. So creating an account, overview of the ordinance, how to add your property and your energy meters, how to manually add energy meters if you're choosing to do manual, how you can automate energy data with SDG&E, and then the compliance process, including running the data quality checker and submitting the report, which is what we're covering right now. So if you want a quick recap, you can definitely watch that module 5. We also have a reference guide and an SDG&E portal user guide. These are more textbook versions with screenshots. But if you do have any net metering, just see if this will open up. I'm not sure if it's gonna share it. Perfect. Just bear with us a couple minutes as this might take a little while to load. Yeah, I can see it. It's just, let me see. There we go. So under the table of contents, under manually entering energy and water consumption data, if maybe it's not going to go to page 15. Let me quickly go here. Just want to make sure you guys see this. So on page 21 of the reference guide is a full detailed instruction of how you report if you have on-site generation. So if you have on-site generation, definitely check this out. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions on how to do this. X out of this. Oh, I think I just X'd out of the. You might have to reshare.
Yep, I'm getting you back there.
Thanks everyone for your patience. There we go. So what we're going to do now in the last 5 minutes is just show you how we submit that report. So again, just to recap, we clicked on submit data and we're clicking on submit energy data, and it'll actually bring us back to portfolio manager. You can confirm your clicking the correct link by seeing who it's requested by and the instructions for the request. So we see it's City of San Diego, and that's correct. And we're going to scroll down. This is just all the information about the ordinance. And we are submitting on behalf of the San Diego Food Bank. So we're going to select Casey so that information is submitted to the City of San Diego. And we're going to select the food bank as the property we're reporting. You can also report multiple properties at once if you want to report a bulk upload, so you don't have to report them one by one. And then we'll click Generate Response Preview. So at this stage, you have just generated a preview of your report. You haven't submitted it yet. You still have to scroll down, and we can see that we have the report from the City of San Diego, and a response preview has been generated. And I can click on I want to and preview the response to see the response details and make sure it's correct. If I've already reported and I need to generate an updated response, I can click that and it'll resend with new metrics for the City of San Diego. And in our case, this is our first response, so we're just going to click Send Response. And then you can actually choose people to receive a confirmation email. So we'll choose Josh will get a confirmation as well. It'll include an attached Excel file of your response. So you will get an email that signifies you have submitted a response. And then all you have to do is sign in, and I'll just put both of these. Sign in with your username and password, which Josh, you can go ahead and do that. And then you'll click e-sign response and send data. So make sure that if you click the first link and you generated a report, you still have to go through this process. So if you haven't entered your username and password and didn't receive an email from Energy Star with a copy of your report, you haven't fully submitted your report. So definitely make sure you follow all of the steps, and that Module 5 training video does go through all of this in case you want to follow along as you're submitting. So now that we e-signed our response, we can click Send Data. And Josh, go ahead and click Continue. And we'll have seen that our data request to the City of San Diego has been sent, and that Josh will receive a confirmation email with receipt, including the attached Excel file with data. So that is how you submit your report for the City of San Diego. The only difference for the state is you would go to the state's website and click on their reporting link, and you would see the template would have the state's name in it, but the rest of the process is exactly the same. You generate that response preview and then you send the response. So with that, I think we've covered everything. So we still have a few minutes left for Q&A. I'm not sure if any have come in there, but I'm going to give up remote control so we can close it out.
Cool. Thank you, Rebecca. So let's see. I know that I believe you were able to answer quite a few of these questions that came in the chat as you were speaking. But just wanted to give the participants another opportunity. If they had any questions to, you can always raise your hand. And if you do, I can allow you to talk, or if you just want to throw something in the chat here, we'll try to have one of our speakers answer that for you. I see, are any of City of San Diego's water, wastewater treatment, or pump stations being benchmarked in Energy Star portfolio? Rebecca or Tony, do you happen to know that?
I can take that. So the city is actually working with a vendor to benchmark all of their facilities. I'm not sure if that includes the water and wastewater treatment and pump stations. I would assume it is including that. I don't know, Tony, if you can type in the chat box to confirm, but that is a process that they're currently working on.
Okay. Tony says not at this time, it's not included. Thank you. I had in the Q&A, someone asked if the presentation will be made available. Yes, this full presentation will be made available to everyone with the resources, links, and also pointing to where Rebecca was showing there at the end on the city's website, a lot of those different modules that take you through the different steps and different portions of, you know, setting it up versus actually submitting for the ordinance. Any other questions or thoughts from people and the participants? I think we've answered those. If not, any other thoughts there, Rebecca or Tony or Casey?
Josh, I have a question. I know that waste and water is not currently being benchmarked, but we do have a pretty robust composting and recycling program here. We diverted more than 1 million pounds of waste last fiscal year. Can we include those figures? And if we did, would they have any kind of impact on our score?
Yeah, so good. Oh, I was just going to say the waste that we were tracking before was during the lead process, just to begin trying to see what could happen there. It won't affect your Energy Star score. But Rebecca, did you have another comment there?
Oh yeah, I was just going to add that specifically for water, there are water use intensity metrics now available. So it could be something that EPA rolls out in the future, but it's not required for any of this state or city of San Diego benchmarking to include anything other than energy.
But we can definitely, you can walk you through some of those steps on how to get it set up so that you can begin tracking it internally, so that at least you're kind of doing it the same way you were with the energy side of things to be able to begin benchmarking some of those best practices as well. All right. We've got no other questions at this time. I just wanted to say thank you again to everyone that joined us for this webinar today. Thanks again to all of our speakers, Jim and Casey from the Food Bank, Tony from the City of San Diego, and then Rebecca from Center for Sustainable Energy. You know, huge thank you to helping get this set up and being able to kind of show these, you know, proper steps to take and, you know, understanding operations within a building and how to reduce energy usage, and then now how to comply with these benchmarking energy ordinances. So it was really great to be able to kind of show all those different ingredients and then be able to have this for you at the end. As we mentioned, all the slides will be sent out with additional resources, links to the proper contacts. And if you have any other further questions, feel free to reach out. And we really appreciate your time today and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it, guys.